Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Hogarth's Global Astrology. Know your nation, know yourself. I've been away for a little while. I was posting videos once a week before. I'm going to try and get back to that again, and possibly maybe even a little bit more depending on what's going on. But I've just been very busy. I was on holiday, just come back from Amsterdam, and just been busy just with lots of other things. But now I am back, and one of the things what I want to do is, before I kind of launch into my next sort of like season of videos, etc. Of course, there's so much happening in the world. I just wanted to actually to do something of a bit of a review, actually, in terms of what is happening with America right now, in terms of the big C, which we all know about, which we all know what that means. Let me just have a little slurp of my orange drink here. Lovely. We would have seen there is a lot of stuff going on in the world. Now, one of my last videos, so really what I want to do is talk about America in the main, and then talk a little bit about China. And China, actually, I might even separate out for a special video, because there's a lot going on there. But one of the things, before I go on to the US, just to say a little bit about China, I did mention in my last video, which was based on the solar eclipse that we had on June 21st. So just go back in my videos and check that one out. Oh, and also as well, the wings are back by popular request. And you can see I've had a haircut as well, so now they actually fit. My fro was just coming out so wide because obviously couldn't get a haircut, but now they fit nicely. Anyway, I digress. The point is that part of what I said is that the eclipse, the shadow of the eclipse, wherever the shadow of an eclipse falls, particularly with a solar eclipse, this can indicate where some of the biggest changes will be experienced in the world. And I said in my video that part of the shadow went through China. So it went through northern India and China at the point where those two countries meet. As we know, there was a big conflict there recently. Well, maybe not massive, but it was very violent and unpleasant. And I think that really kicked in soon after the actual eclipse happened. But the point is that I said that China's international reputation will change. And this is what's happening. We see now that TikTok, has been stopped, for example, and there's all sorts of contracts, and people are reviewing their relationship with China. Now that leads back into America, because America has, Trump has signed something where it basically removes that special status for Hong Kong. Obviously that's caused a lot of controversy. China is not pleased about it, but again, this is part of that reputational change, and there'll be other changes that will happen in China as well. We've already had some floods and stuff, but there's more to come, but I will save that for a special one. But let's get to the main meat and drink of what it is that I wanted to talk about today. And this, in a way, is a kind of like a half-year review, because we're now going into the second half of the year. We're now in July. The solstice has happened, which demarcates the middle point of the year. And now, of course, we're now making our way towards autumn and eventually winter again. I know, you just think once the summer's arrived, and then before you know it, the days are getting shorter in the northern hemisphere. But I wrote this blog a few months ago on the 8th of March, actually, and I'll put the link in the description below. And also as well, I just wanted to say, if you're enjoying my channel, please subscribe, please share, and once you've subscribed, please click the notification button so you know when my next videos are up and running. And I'm really glad that people have been enjoying things. Again, if you want a consultation with me about either love, relationships, wealth, finance, fate, destiny. I do individual consultations and groups and bundles and stuff, which is something that I'm working on, and that's at my website, which is the archetypalblueprint.com. And I, as usual, I will ping that up somewhere in terms of the writing of that for you. I digress. So now the blog that I wrote back on March 8th, 2020 is called "The Karma Bus Has Arrived for America." And yeah, and that was March 8th, 2020. Now in that I talk about various different things that I anticipated happening. Now we need to understand, back in March, this is when we were starting to go into global lockdown. So remember, there was essentially the story broke, or COVID broke officially in February 2020, although we know it was happening earlier than that in China, but that's really when the world started to know about it. And March was when all that stuff really started to kick off, all of the restrictions and all of those things. And I've described the reasons why that is in other videos. Let me have another slurp. But it was still quite a rapidly moving thing. The world was still pretty much responding, and countries were going into more lockdown. Now we're starting to try and come out of lockdown, but at that time it was fresh and new. So we weren't aware of the full dynamics. So one of my things, and I'll put the link to my blog in the description below, but one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I've made several notes here, was that I said at the time, the Trump administration still doesn't know the true numbers of infections. This is still true. This is still true. This was back in March. We're now in July. And as you've probably noticed, you know, Trumpy, or my alternative name for him, which is Baboon Larange, Trumpy and his administration still doesn't know the true numbers. And he's been saying quite weird things, basically. Odd things like, well, you know, we want to stop the testing because the more you test, the more you find. Yeah, that's the whole point. We're supposed to be doing contact tracing, get in touch with those people that have had infections so they don't then spread the virus onto others. And there's been huge problems still in the US in terms of the contact tracing. Not an easy thing to do, but this is something that they've been talking about for a long time. And all of that just seems to be on hold as those numbers zoom up. We also had back in March, I've got to try and get this name right, Adhanom Ghebreyesus, I think that's his name, of the World Health Organization, said the United States has never been less prepared for a pandemic. This was back around March time. It looks like that is still the case. And this is very worrying. This is very, very, very worrying because, you know, certain nations have certain karmic things. And like I said, you know, for the United States, because of their birth chart, their nation's birth chart of 1776, 1801, July 4th, at around about 6:30 p.m. in the evening, this gives them a certain karmic responsibility. They're sort of like on the karmic stage, as it were, the lightning rod in many ways for the rest of the world. So, you know, America's future really does count in terms of like the global order. And we can see that the numbers so far are not under control. And in fact, it seems like it's getting worse. And as you've seen with this virus, the numbers just go up and up and up and up until you get there. So one of the things I mentioned, which has happened recently, I said US citizens would become banned from travel. This was back in this is back in March. That was not on the cards. As we know, that has happened recently. American citizens are not allowed to travel officially to the rest of the world. In fact, I think we've got one of the, his name escapes me right now, but one of the top US officials, the Secretary of State, coming over to visit the UK, and he and his team had to get special permission in order to be able to avoid the coronavirus embargo, essentially. If the USA doesn't get its act together, it really has to get its ducks in a row. I can't see that travel ban ending anytime soon, because those numbers are zooming up, and the more they go up, of course, you can't be traveling to the rest of the world, because of course, the virus is highly infectious. But that is something that I wrote back in March 8th, 2020. So you will see when you click on the blog, it has its date stamp. So it was there, I put on the record before it was even a thing. Also as well, I think there will be a problem with mass looting and panic. Now, obviously, this thing is, this review is not so joyous, but we have to just be realistic about what's going on in the world. So we've already seen a little bit of looting and stuff like that. That was connected with some of the writing or some of the issues around Black Lives Matter. It was very small, and of course it was put to a stop, and in no way reflects that whole thing that was happening. What I see happening, and it is probably just the logical outcome, we could see mass looting due to hunger and starvation, pretty much, and because of coronavirus. So now if we think the US economy is essentially going to have to shut down again. It's already been happening state by state, but when you've got numbers just zooming through the roof, you've got to do something. So that means closing the US economy again. Now, remember there was some months ago a little kind of relief package of about $1,000 for every citizen in the US. Not everyone got that money, and as we know, $1,000 in whatever kind of climes or country you're in doesn't go that far these days, but especially in America, that was months ago now. So we have a lot of people who do not have access to income, do not have proper access to health care, and they don't have any money. Yeah, but there's lots of guns. At some point, the desperation is going to reach so high that people are just going to feel they're going to have to take matters into their own hands. And then we could begin to see a real down spiral happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but one thing tends to lead to another, because one of the things I also wrote in the blog as well, and in earlier blogs, is there is a planetary alignment which shows there could be a distinct possibility of even civil war in America. And I think if it is going to happen, it's going to be due to a combination of the coronavirus, the Trump administration, and fear, desperation, and hunger. Because when Pluto goes into the second house, which is to do with values, yeah, food, shelter, money, family, yeah, pardon me, security. Pluto just dipped in, and it's just gone retrograde a little bit, and then it's going to go back, and it's kind of crisscrossing with Jupiter and Saturn several times this year. So the moment that Pluto went into the second house, then we really saw like the US economy just drop. Unfortunately, it seems likely that it's going to drop again in some way, because of course you can't keep people safe and the economy open while the numbers of people infected still goes up. So this is just logic, yeah? This is just plain, pure, simple logic. So this is going to build up a lot of things. Also as well, Mars is going to be going retrograde soon in September. So the dates are, so it's going to be from the 9th of September till Friday, Friday 13th of November 2020, approximately, give or take a day or two, depending where you are in the world. And it's going to be hovering between sidereal Pisces and sidereal Aries. In Western tropical astrology, it's going to be pretty much spending most of its time in Aries. But it's going to be there for about 6 months, you know, going backwards and forwards between those two signs. And it's going to be happening, a lot of that is going to be happening in the 4th house of homeland for the US constitutional charts. Yeah, so we see, you know, there's a very good chance there's going to be a lot of civil unrest, and I think it's going to be due to the poor handling of COVID, where a lot of people dying and, you know, the hospitals overflowing, and basic hunger and anger and frustration and shame and embarrassment as things continually get more and more difficult for the US if they don't sort stuff out. Another thing that I predicted as well in my blog, I said basically America's enemies, seeing America struggle as it is, are gonna sense that the country is vulnerable, and it is. We can see Trumpy is pretty much to this date abandoned any attempt to kind of lead. You know, he's just basically just vacated the floor. And there's a special, I need to watch it, but I think it's something by CNN where Trump was posing with tinned food, like tinned food and stuff like that. What's that all about? Anyway, now, one of the things I predicted was that there would be cyber attacks on the US, and that has actually happened. So we know that there's been cyber attacks on US research facilities by state actors. You know, let's put it that way, state actors. I think who we know who they are. One of those nations begins with C. One of those big nations begins with R, and another one of those nations begins with I, which is based in the Middle East. So so there have been those cyber attacks, but also as well, we recently had the big cyber attack happen on those Twitter accounts as well. Do you remember that? There was a big cyber attack, and like people's accounts basically got taken over to spew some stuff about Bitcoin. I don't think that is going to stop. I don't think there's any country in their right mind that's going to attack America outright, you know, blatantly. You never know, there could be some kind of state actor terrorist stuff, but it's looking more like that if there is terrorism, it's going to be on a more domestic front. Already, Trump has actually used that language where he referred to a lot of those marches of Black Lives Matter as domestic terrorism. So this term might be interchangeable. It may not necessarily be a foreign power, but a foreign power may stoke up that kind of stuff where Americans feel they need to take action in that kind of way. So we'll have to see, you know, it depends what comes out with the stars, because, you know, there is free will. But there's certainly going to be lots of stuff on the domestic front that will either look like terrorism, or it will be terrorism from the domestic citizens. And it could also be cyber terrorism. Now, China and other places, but China in particular is very upset at the moment with certain things that have happened. And there's certainly been threats against the UK. You know, threats, real genuine threats against the UK. So we'll have to see what comes out in the wash. But given the day and age, it's definitely much more about technology and cyber. So watch this space. There'll probably be something done to the UK, we'll see, in terms of some kind of retaliation for the Huawei contract being cancelled. And China has basically gone on the record to say, we're going to do something about that, watch out. There you go. But I think we're going to see more cyber stuff hit America. It wouldn't shock me if it was something like some massive attempt on Amazon or some kind of distribution systems or energy systems. I still think there might even be the possibility of trying to attack the network of things like power stations, like nuclear power or something, or even something to do with the energy grid or something like that. It's already been happening. I've been predicting it, but I think there'll be more. And also as well, I think there's going to be issues as well around some kind of natural disasters and stuff like that. Looking maybe hurricanes and earthquakes. We are still in a global warming scenario. I do hope though that a lot of that economic inactivity that we had due to COVID will have helped reduce global emissions to an extent. We certainly saw that the smog of pollution cleared in a matter of weeks. That was over China and over the factories and stuff. So we can imagine that that's happened globally. And we're still not up to full speed. The airlines aren't at full capacity. So there would have been, at the very least, for a period of some months, less CO2 in the atmosphere. And obviously, Gaia, you know, the world is going to try and balance that out. Whether that's enough, I doubt it. So hurricane season is still on the way. Yeah, hurricane season is still on the way. It happens, near the sort of back end of September or October, just when Mars is going retrograde. And Pisces is a water sign, yeah? And Mars will be Gandanta. This is basically when a planet is going from a water sign to a fire sign, or a fire sign to a water sign. And it's at the last degrees, just when it's crossing over. And that is known as drowning, yeah? So we tend to get a lot of storms and stuff to do with water, drowning, things sinking, rivers bursting and all this kind of stuff. I know it's not the most optimistic kind of stuff that I'm talking about, but we need to be ready for this. And that is also happening in that kind of hurricane season window, especially for the States, because Mars is going to be dipping in and out of that fourth house of the homeland. So these are stuff that we need to look at. And so if you can imagine, if there's a scenario, if America doesn't get a grip on this virus, it really has to get a grip on this virus, because if it doesn't, you can imagine the States could actually be faced with a scenario where they have a situation where nobody can work because of the virus. So you have economic meltdown. You also then have hunger, where people need to eat and can't get hold of food, which could then lead to looting. And then as people try to defend their homes and property, that could then lead to shooting. And because everyone's got guns, that could escalate. And then at the same time, we could be having cyber attacks from other nations, you know, seeing America in a vulnerable state. And then on top of that, you could also have a scenario where there is also compounded by natural disaster as well, with Mars being Gandanta, you know, causing all sorts of problems. Also as well, when Mars goes retrograde, Mars also represents real estate. So there could be actually a big dip in the real estate market in the USA as well, globally too, but particularly in the USA, which again would make sense. If people don't have money to pay their bills, how are they going to keep a roof over their head? You know, second house is about that: security, roof over their head, food, your basic needs, survival, yeah? Like in terms of being able to thrive, your ability to be able to thrive. That's what we can look at in the second house. And this is really under threat in terms of in terms of the US. But the fourth house is also the home as well, the homeland, but quite literally the home too. So, you know, it's very tricky. I mean, I would like this to be a more positive post, but you know, we've got to be real about the world. However, there is light. if we want to, let's finish on a high note, but just to reiterate, America has to get its ducks in a row in regards to COVID. There needs to be logic and truth. Yes, because if it's fantasy and lies, that's not going to work. COVID doesn't pay attention to what politicians say. You know, it just does what it does. So you either prevent it and, you know, wear your face masks, you know, wash your hands and do all that stuff, which is pretty much what the rest of the world is either doing or trying to do, or one has these terrible consequences. But anyway, enough of that. I want to leave that there. On the positive, it looks like progress, or not even looks like, progress is being made on a vaccine. So that's good. That will help things. But also as well, this is also a time of great change, transformation, and opportunities. We know we've got that election coming up soon, so let's hope let's just hope that Americans pick a better leader. I think that's fair to say without it getting too personal, but you need a better leader, someone that's actually prepared to lead. And let's hope that becomes a turning point for the US, where it can take confidence and pride in itself again and start maybe even leading the world in the right direction. Because at the moment, the way it works with the karma is that basically America is on a kind of platform where it can show to the world what's correct to do, but also what is not correct to do. So, you know, thoughts and prayers and stuff for the United States. I hope they go the right way. But again, we've got to, you know, hold on to the light, stay positive. It's not all doom and gloom. There are lots of opportunities as well. There are challenges, but there's lots of opportunities. So I'm going to leave it there. Please like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to put in requests. I might have a little chat about Johnny Depp and his ex-wife Amber. Might have a little chat about that because that's quite curious. And then of course I need to do the My What Makes series, etc. So I just thought I'd come in with that one. Namaste everyone, and have a great day and stay positive. You know, there's a lot of positives there as well, many opportunities, yeah, amongst the tricky stuff. So thanks so much and catch you soon. Cheers.